Welcome back to another episode of the Main Quest podcast. This is, of course, the #1 retro gaming podcast that is now at the age where dinosaurs have become its entire personality. As always, I am your host, Keith. Of course, this is a side quest episode. It is an anniversary episode about the podcast. So there's no actual games to talk about. I'm more or less doing a victory lap today. So it's just a lot of monologuing and reminiscing about the show, and if that isn't anything you care about, hey, totally fair. But take a hike. There's hundreds of game-focused episodes in the backlog, and also on the Patreon, which by the time this episode airs will be 100% free. That is correct. No strings attached. Nothing on the Patreon will be behind a paywall. So if there is a bonus episode that you've been dying to hear, like, I don't know, the Earthbound Halloween hack, or the episode I did on how heavy metal music has influenced video games, as well as every single written review that I've done, you can just go get it. Like, go ahead. There's nothing stopping you. If you've been waiting for the price to be right, ain't no better time, baby. Just go on. Go on and get. Link to the Patreon, of course, is in the show notes, as well as the link to the Discord, which is also free. It always has been. And there's no better time to join the Discord as well. And so you may be asking yourself, why is the Patreon free? Why is this the best time to join the Discord? I'll get to that. But first, I want to talk about the podcast. Years, 72 months, 312 weeks, 2,190 days, 52,560 hours, 3,153,600 minutes, and 189,216,000 seconds. That's how long the main quest has been active. Not counting the 1 year that I had to take a hiatus, in which I only released like 4 episodes in that year, which I'm counting. I was technically active. I'm counting it. And it has been well over a year now since I've returned, and I couldn't be happier with the amount of growth that I've seen, that I've experienced with the podcast since I came back from floating face down in a dark river. Last year, I released that 5-hour-long retrospective on the podcast. I kind of talked about how the show started, how it began, and how I felt like the podcast was now kind of facing what felt like a fresh start. And, I was in a very fortunate situation back then, because prior to leaving, I had built up a strong reputation, and I feel like I did a good job keeping that up, wherein I was periodically making appearances on other podcasts while this thing was on hiatus. So I felt like I wasn't completely out of the zeitgeist, right? And I can't give myself flowers when it comes to that reputation, right? I owe a little bit to myself, but it's a podcast, I'm just talking, I don't think about what I say when I say it, and I think a lot of those flowers belong to you guys. I need to thank you guys first and foremost. And all of the great things that you guys said about the program, sharing your favorite episodes, making comments in other communities, and then coming together the past year and helping me form the community in the Discord, which I admittedly have not been very active in. A little bit more on that in a minute. You know, my online presence hasn't been very good. I would say it's been very limited the past 6 months. You know, I don't like marketing. I think you guys know that. And I didn't want to spend my time marketing the show on really any other platforms outside of Instagram. I made a TikTok account last year, which was very scary. And I posted some stuff on there, and then I cross-posted that stuff to YouTube, which, by the way, you know, my online presence. Do you guys even know that the podcast has a YouTube account? Do you know that you can find the podcast there? Because I never talk about it. So if you didn't know, it's totally fair. Yeah, I dropped social media in my personal life for a lot of reasons a long time ago. But the main driver was that it felt like I was wasting my time posting just random personal things to my personal accounts. And when it came to the podcast, and then also spending time in other people's Discord servers and even mine, it sort of felt like it was just becoming a distraction, for lack of a better term. A distraction from something else that I could otherwise be doing. And this is really going off the rails here already. I kind of figured tonight would be one of those nights. I'm supposed to be talking about how well the podcast is doing. I guess all I'm trying to say here is that I apologize for going MIA, but the social media aspects and me being online as much as I was beginning to feel like a sunk cost fallacy. But since I've returned, I wrapped up my Sega Genesis, Sega CD, and 32X coverage, and I finished it strong with probably some of my favorite episodes. I mean, my first episode back, and I know this is like, you know, this wasn't technically last year. It was like a year and a half ago. My first episode back was Knuckles Chaotix, which may have been one of my favorite episodes from my return. No shade to anyone else. My gut reaction says it has to be that one, just because I remember how excited I was to finally have Toby and Goobs on the program after, 5 years of being friends with them. And then starting with the Super Nintendo coverage, you guys may have noticed I changed the titles of the episodes. I wanted to start naming them around what was actually being talked about in the episode. You know, I did some learning while I was gone. You know, some things about discoverability and SEO and the way things were shaping up with the way that I was naming the episodes prior to that. I don't think anyone was really finding the podcast naturally. It also allowed me, the new naming conventions allowed me to add more personality to the show, so people will kind of know what they're stepping into, for better or worse. But I think it worked. This was the first year I can remember where the numbers never stalled. Listenership did not fall off. Every new episode had at least a few new downloads, more than the previous one. And according to Libsyn, I hear people say Lisbon and Libsyn. I don't know exactly how it's pronounced. New host, which I have published 27 new episodes on in the past year. According to them, I have accumulated 11,649 downloads across 27 episodes, which, if my math is correct, is around 430 downloads per episode. which for my tiny one-man operation here, which is not a euphemism, by the way, I promise, it's not a joke, not in this episode. it's pretty good considering I was almost starting from zero. If it wasn't for you guys, if it wasn't for the diehards. But of course, 430, it's a bit disingenuous. Not every episode has 430 downloads, but that's just what it averages to, I guess. And what also helped is that I got so many great guests the past year, and not just Toby and Goobs, but a lot of returning guests that I have a ton of chemistry with, good rapport, guests who are far better at this than I am, and who have far larger platforms in which they do them on. And I got to interview a real-life game developer. Something I wish I would have gotten off my butt to do a little bit more of. And when I did have time to play games that weren't going to be the centerpiece of an episode, and if I had feelings about it, if I felt a certain way, I wrote about it on the Patreon. And if you're not privy, and you totally have no excuse to not be now, I formatted these written reviews to look like the magazine reviews that I grew up reading, that we all grew up reading. So stuff from, EGM, Nintendo Power, GamePro, that kind of stuff. And I created these graphics, this layout. The writing was slightly snarky to kind of really emulate that vibe. And I had a lot of fun doing that stuff. It was really difficult at first to get out of my own head with the first couple of reviews. But after a while, it just kind of became second nature. And I think it's some of my best work. And I think it's totally worth checking out if you have the time. I'm just as proud of those reviews as I am, anything else that I have recorded the past 6 years. And then there was the annual programming, of course, of Listener Request Month, and the Ghoulcade made a return in October. And as far as Listener Request Month, I got to cover Kingdom Hearts. I had to cover Kingdom Hearts. A massive, just legendary JRPG. And now that I'm thinking about it, that may have been an all-timer. If I'm talking about just the past year, that just makes the cut. I love Knuckles Chaotix. I love that episode. That technically doesn't make the cut because it was longer than a year ago. So maybe I got to give it to Kingdom Hearts. And I never thought I would ever cover that game. Never. It was joked about, certainly joked about, plenty of times. But never have I ever thought in the lifetime of the podcast, that I would talk about Kingdom Hearts, let alone actually play it. And then you've got the Ghoulcade. You guys know I am a spooky boy. I love the spooky season. The Ghoulcade is my heart. And it was a lot of fun covering that batch of particular games. It was such a wide selection of horror-themed games. I think of that one, Phil and I went hard in the paint on Castlevania 4, just going back and forth, making each other probably uncomfortable, like legitimately arguing. And then you've got Bart's Nightmare. Bart's Nightmare might be an all-time classic Main Quest episode, if you haven't listened to that one. Only because I just absolutely flip out and lose my shit while talking about that game, while my guest questions everything from why they played the game to why they even showed up to record, only for me to yell the entire time. Shout out to Lethco, by the way. It really has just been a really great year. I've been having a great time covering these Super Nintendo games. It is amongst my personal favorite game libraries, and even if I didn't really enjoy replaying and revisiting a specific game, I at least had a great time talking about it with whomever was on that particular episode. And all of this is to say, and it's really going to kill me, when I tell you that the Main Quest podcast is going on an indefinite hiatus. Yes, it is true. You do not have to keep replaying the past 10 seconds to make sure you heard me correctly. This is something I alluded to during my monologue on the Final Fantasy V episode, the previous episode. And I can't keep doing this anymore. This also explains why the Patreon is free. No reason to keep paying for anything that I'm not going to commit to anymore. Which the patrons already know. They already know what's going on prior to all of you guys hearing this on the main feed. They were the first to know. And I will say I've been receiving a lot of messages from everybody. A lot of this information has already kind of leaked outside of the Patreon. I don't know how that happened. How many other things have leaked from the Patreon, dear patrons? So, yeah, I've been getting a lot of messages, a lot of really meaningful messages, and I'm doing my best to respond to all of them. So, if I don't get to you or whatever, just hold on to your butts. I'll get there. I'm definitely doing this goodbye much differently than I did the last time, because I'm in a much better place. And I do want to say, I want to make it clear, nothing is wrong. It's quite the contrary. I just spent the last 10 minutes talking about how great everything has been, right? So what's going on? I spent the past year job hunting, and everywhere I was looking, it was just nothing but dead ends, and the offers that I was getting were not comparable to my expertise, which is frustrating. It's absolutely frustrating. It's demeaning, but I can't be mad when I'm searching during a period of U.S. history when employment is stagnating and companies are doing waves of layoffs. Turns out the video game industry isn't the only thing that's being hit hard. And so that's something that I cannot do anything about, right? But what I can do is make myself more desirable. And so I made the decision to go back to school. And the second I submitted all of my paperwork, I sat there and I knew that I shot myself in the foot as far as the podcast goes. I think the first episode in January, I said I would try to get a minimum of 2 episodes out a month. And as I said that, I was also staring at the writing on the wall that was saying that that was never going to happen. I knew it wasn't realistic, and it isn't. Especially when I'm also running a Patreon where I'm supposed to commit to bonus content, which is definitely not happening. I barely got 2 episodes out in March. And I know this might not mean a lot to you guys, especially if you've never produced a podcast before. And I mean like really produced a podcast. It is time consuming. And then you factor in the time that I take to play the games, and then research the developments and schedule the guests, which was also another hardship the past year. Suddenly, a lot of guests weren't able to make their scheduled time. A lot of the time. Which is whatever. I'm not paying for anybody to come on the podcast. I'm not paying for anybody's time or anything like that. But after a while, that was really starting to wear thin. And all of this time and effort was really, it really starts to take up a lot of mental space that I just do not have anymore. And I'm sure you can hear it in my voice a little bit. I was starting to get burned out. Starting to get burned out on something that started as a hobby and was for fun. And then suddenly started to feel like a commitment because I wanted to stay consistent for you guys. And I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter or anything. I don't want to come across as that. Because this is a totally different situation from the first time I had to go on a hiatus. Long-time listeners know that the last time this happened, I literally did an Irish goodbye and just disappeared. I dropped out of life. I didn't say anything except to the people closest to me. And, the situation that I was in my personal life was killing my soul. I was not the person that I was, before starting the podcast, and who is speaking to you today. And so making the decision to shelve this project is now coming from a place in which I feel satisfied and definitely proud at what I have accomplished with it. And even talk about all the charity. All the charity and things that I got involved with the past year, in which, of course, the patrons helped with, which I think is another solid feather in the cap for the podcast for the past year. But anyway, I could not be in a better place in my life right now. I'm very fortunate for the people that I have around me. And for the first time in a very, very long time, I am genuinely happy. And I'm just looking forward to what the next day brings and feel like I'm actually contributing to my own life and taking care of myself in a way that I really have not done in a very long time. I would say in probably like a decade. A lot of growth, Stagnation is terrible. You always want to keep getting better. You should want to grow. You should want to smile more. Everybody deserves that. And that's just what's going on. But I don't have any room for the main quest right now. Not right now. Part of me will feel like I'm missing out on something. 6 years. 6 years is a long time. Eric, if you don't stop texting me, I swear to God, dude. I should probably wrap this up anyway. I want to thank everybody who's ever taken their time to be on the show or even show interest in coming on the show. I want to thank every one of you listening right now for all tuning in, every week. I want to thank even the people who just wanted to hear me speak on a specific game or because they wanted to hear their favorite guest. I want to thank you as well. Thank you to every single patron for literally holding this show up on their shoulders. Thank you to everyone in the Discord community who keeps that thing breathing on a daily basis. I appreciate every single person who allowed me to have a voice in a void in which I didn't think I had one. I won't be gone for good. Again, jump in the Discord. You'll be able to reach out to me there. Ironically, now that the show is over, I do want to do more stuff in the Discord server. I really want to do movie nights. I did it before, and it was a good hang. And I'm sure if you're a fan of the many guests that I have had on this podcast, you may hear me talking about video games on their podcasts. But for now, the book is closed on this quest. Thank you guys so much. Take care of yourselves. And always remember, it's okay to like a video game.